The second straight year, the Fillmore Central Falcon football team is heading to the state tournament. They did so by winning the sectional final last Friday night against Kenyon Wanamingo. A head coach, Chris Mensink, joining us and looking at the stats from last week's game. Coach, got to start on the defensive side of the ball. Held them to 137 yards total offense, forced 4 turnovers, pitched a shutout. Can't ask for too much better than that in a sectional final, can you?
No, we've talked about this all season long, right? The turnover ratio and defense, those are things that you definitely need to win on those areas to win ball games. And we told our kids at halftime they had 0 and said if they don't score, they can't win. So like you said, for our defense and our defensive staff to come up with a scheme that they did and hold a team like that wants to run the ball to 137 total yards and all of that on the rushing side of it, I think they had -1 passing. What a tremendous effort by our kids and coaches. So, and out of that 137, I think the first drive, they burned up almost the entire first quarter, and probably 70 of those yards were on that first drive. And that's always interesting because you scheme against them the way you think things are going to go and what they're going to do. And they came out and were doing some things that they hadn't shown us and done in the past. So, but to get that stop, at the end of the quarter and then turn around on the next play and score in one play, what a tribute to our kids and their mental toughness.
Getting off to the early lead on the scoreboard, how big is that against an opponent that wants to do what Kenyon Wanamingo wants to do?
Yeah, that's what we preach to our kids, right? This is a team we have to get up on early. If we can get up by a few scores, it's tough for a team like that wants to control the clock and score a lot of points and come back. So that was huge for our kids. To get that early lead, and take that 6-0 lead into the second quarter.
And against a team like that, how big is not giving up big plays in the running game?
Yeah, that's huge. So, and allowing them to burn some clock, especially when you have that lead, if we can keep, I don't know how many plays that first drive was, but probably 15, 16, 17, something like that. It keeps our offense off the field, but at the same time, when you have a lead, the clock is your enemy as well. So, not giving up the big plays. I think that's been a strength and an attribute of our defense all year long. We haven't given up, those big explosive plays.
Your running game, on the other hand, showed some pretty good consistency at 204 yards on 31 attempts, led by those big plays from Jace Keeney. What made your running game work in an efficient manner last week?
Well, I think it's just, our offensive line continues to get better every week and they continue to gel. And, when you have a talent like Jace Keeney, anytime he touches the ball, he can score with it. So he just needs a little bit of a seam. If you look at the film on his touchdowns that he scored in that ball game, he did them 2 different ways. One he was carrying 3 people with him into the end zone, and the other one he was out in the open making some good moves and making people miss. So to have our athletes out in space is definitely an advantage for us, for sure, especially on turf.
You went to state last year. You've repeated the task again this year. What do you credit that to? This team obviously didn't rest on any laurels from last year. They got back to state and they're hungry for more now. What do you credit that to?
Well, I think that I credit it to they got a taste of that and they saw exactly what it takes to accomplish that. And they didn't, like you say, rest on their laurels. They remember that feeling at US Bank when they lost by 1 point and they definitely want to rectify that. But last year it was a little different team, right? We hadn't been there and this team has. And had a target on their back. So the way that our kids have approached the game, approached the offseason, and approached the season with a little bit of a target on their back, I'm very proud of how they've approached it and done it the right way and continue to take things one week and one opponent at a time.
How has this team gotten better since week number 1?
Well, I think it starts up front, right? I think our offensive and defensive lines have gotten a lot better. We knew we were going to have skill guys on the outside and the back end of our defense. We were going to have some speed. And that's something that that we work hard on, not necessarily, we can coach it, right? The kids work hard at it, but having speed, I think that's a huge attribute to us, but I think we've gotten better definitely up front all year long, each and every game.
You head to Jordan Friday night, you take on a Springfield team. What have you been able to come up with from a knowledge perspective on them?
Yeah, well, Springfield's is a team that's been there too. They've got some nice history. They lost to Minnesota as well in the finals last year, so they were there last year as well, and they're going to be hungry too. Looking at them on film, it's a lot different team than we faced last weekend at Kenyon-Wanamingo, who wants to pound the ball. Not that they don't run the ball, but they've got some speed and they like to spread you out as well. I think their quarterback has something like 45 touchdown passes on the year. They run some jet. They run a lot of different things. They run stuff a little bit different than us, but it's going to be a fun and exciting challenge for our kids.
You're going into the same setting that you went into in the first round at Jordan last year. Does that maybe help from a comfort perspective, at least a little bit?
I think so. I think, having some familiarity with your surroundings and where we're going and then going through that same process and schedule. In fact, our game's a 5:30 start, which it was last year. And I think ours is the only section or quarterfinal game that's at 5:30. So having that familiarity, I think definitely will be an advantage for our kids.
All right, Coach, as I keep telling you every week, let's keep having these conversations. Keep your guys healthy Friday night, and we wish you best of luck. And hopefully we're previewing a semifinal game next week. Best of luck to you.
Appreciate it as always. Thanks, Darren.
Chris Mensink, head coach of the Fillmore Central Falcons. It's Fillmore Central and Springfield in the quarterfinals of the state playoff Friday night at Jordan at 5:30.